Welcome. I'm Julie Thompson, Executive Director of PACTV, and today we're hosting a COVID-19 update for the town of Pembroke. We're hosting these forums every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Watch in Pembroke on Comcast Channel 15 or online on our streaming channel by visiting pactv.org/live. To ask questions during the forum, email them to pembrokeinfo@pactv.org. Again, that's pembrokeinfo@pactv.org. For the forum replay schedule and additional Pembroke meeting coverage, please visit pactv.org/Pembroke. Sabrina Chilcott, Pembroke's Assistant Town Manager, will moderate the forum and will introduce the participants who are contributing today. Welcome, Sabrina.
Thank you, Julie. Today is Tuesday, March 31st, and we are joined today by Health Agent Lisa Cullity, School Superintendent Erin, Council on Aging Director Gretchen Emmetts, and State Representative Josh Cutler. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, and I'd love to ask everyone to just preface your remarks with what you want people to know. Lisa, could you start?
Certainly. So I think the quick updates are that we currently have cases numbering 8 in Pembroke. A lot of people are very concerned and want to know where those cases are, who those people are, where they've been. And I urge a lot of caution with that information. The fact is there's a lot more people around us that have coronavirus or are carrying coronavirus than the people that have been tested positive. While testing is making huge strides, the number of people we're able to test is escalating daily. We still are nowhere near actual numbers. So please proceed with caution when you need to go out in public. Only go out in public when you need to. When you are going out in public, wash your hands. I'm never going to stop saying that. When you come back from being out in public, wash your hands. Presume that every surface you touch out in the public and presume every person you come into contact with could potentially have coronavirus, because that's the reality.
Thank you, Lisa. Erin, do you have some opening remarks for the folks at home today in Pembroke?
Sure. So I think all of us have heard by now that our new potential open date is May 4th. So with that change from April 7th to May 4th, obviously we are going to start doing things a little bit differently. Up until this point, our main focus has been maintaining connections with kids, as well as offering more of an enrichment type model for schoolwork. With Commissioner Riley's directive this past Friday, he would like us to shift more towards a remote learning platform, meaning more of an assignment-based platform, but still the main focus continues to be connecting with kids. So over this week, starting yesterday, we had our faculty meetings in all of our buildings, virtually, of course, working with grade levels today to figure out what that looks like for delivering content via this new platform. And we'll be sending out expectations to families, hopefully by Thursday, because we want to be up and running by Monday, April 6th.
Thank you. Gretchen, how are things at the Council on Aging?
Good morning. We're pretty busy, and I want to just let everyone know that we're always staffed here, either myself or someone else. And Meals on Wheels are continuing, and outreach is continuing, so that if anyone has any questions, all they have to do is call us. And if someone has a neighbor that maybe they're interested in having services for, they should call us too.
Thank you. Representative Cutler,
Morning.
what would you like to tell everybody? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Sabrina. So lots going on at the state and federal level. Just a quick recap, and happy to take some questions after. One is obviously the CARES Act was signed by the president, passed by Congress, signed by the president on Friday. And that will provide a lot of benefits to Massachusetts in a variety of different ways. A couple of ones I wanted to touch on briefly. One is in terms of unemployment. Number one, it will extend unemployment for folks who may have already been on unemployment for an additional 13 weeks. It will provide an extra $600 increase for every person who's on unemployment. And it will allow, and this is pretty significant, it's going to allow people who are self-employed or what we call 1099 contract workers, so-called gig economy folks, to access unemployment benefits. Typically, these folks are not able to collect unemployment because they're not paying into the unemployment system, but because of the CARES Act, they will be able to do that for the first time. So that's going to be a major help for a lot of people. I can tell you in my office, that's probably the number one question we get from folks is about unemployment for self-employed or for independent contractors. So just for folks who are in that situation, I would just urge you to just be a little bit patient. I know it's hard. What's happening right now is that the U.S. Department of Labor is coming up with its sort of framework for how this is going to work, along with the funding. And then as soon as the states get that, they're going to act. And so we, through our Department of Unemployment Assistance here at the state level, as soon as we get that go-ahead from the federal government and the funding, we'll be open for business so that folks who are folks who are self-employed or 1099 can apply for benefits. The governor just reminded folks that just yesterday that has not happened yet. And so folks who are in that situation should hold off on applying, because what they're doing is just sort of clogging the system in effect for everyone else who's trying to apply for unemployment benefits, which, as you can imagine, is quite a lot. So as soon as that sort of process is open, we will let everyone know. I'll put it all over Facebook. It'll be all over the state website, and everyone locally will know. So just keep a little bit patient for that. We hopefully will be just a matter of days. So that's one big benefit. Obviously, also people have heard there's going to be direct cash assistance in the amount of up to $1,200 per person, plus $500 per child, depending on income levels. And again, we're told that will take a little bit of time to implement and fully, to actually get the checks sent out through the IRS. At the state level, a lot of developments as well. The governor announced a new online portal for if folks who want to sell or donate PPE, personal protective equipment, to support our COVID-19 relief effort for our first responders and healthcare workers. If you go to the state website, I know you guys got the thing on the bottom, you can probably pop up. You can find the link, but it's a new online portal if you want to donate or sell PPE to help our relief efforts. So that's a great thing. Another new online tool is something called bowiehealth.com. And I apologize, I didn't give this in advance, so I will spell it out, BOUY health.com/mass. And you can go online, and that is basically a tool to help you check your symptoms. So if you think you may have some symptoms, you can go online and sort of plug in your symptoms, and it will tell you in a medically approved way, make recommendations. It's obviously not a substitute for talking to your doctor, but it does help to sort of gauge early symptoms, and it is approved by Mass DPH. So I urge you to check that out. A bit of good news for taxpayers. We've moved the state tax filing deadline to align with the federal change. So it will now be July 15th. And that happens automatically. So you don't need to file extension. You don't need to do anything. That just will happen as a matter of course. Also on the PPE, back to that for one moment, wanted to let folks know that we did receive a shipment from the national stockpile. Obviously, this has been a big issue. If you talk to any nurse or doctor, you'll certainly hear about this. And we did get a PPE shipment over the weekends on Saturday and Sunday. An additional order for 1,000 ventilators was approved by Washington, and we're still waiting for that to be delivered. So we still are short, but more supplies and more PPE is coming to Massachusetts. And then just the other thing I wanted to mention was travel guidance. The governor's issued some travel advisories asking people who have traveled out of state to self-quarantine for a period of 14 days. So that's just a few of the things that are going on. There's still lots going on, obviously, and happy to take some questions and go in whatever directions folks are curious about. That's the update.
Thank you. Lisa, as the health agent communicating with the Department of Public Health, what's the process that you go through when you're notified about a case?
Sure. So I'm going to walk through that, divulging as much as I can divulge. So when a case comes in, a medical care worker would notify the state. This is often done electronically. That case is then loaded on a system database called Maven. That database is accessible by community to the community coordinator, which of course is your local boards of health. In this case, we have public health nurses that actually do that work for us. They would go on there, they would see the case, they would see the information pertinent to that person in that case. And then it is the local public health nurse that makes follow-up calls based on CDC and state protocol of what kind of contacts need to be notified involved with that individual, what kind of actions need to be taken and associated with that individual. So that's all done internally. And I know there's a lot of frustration because I'm seeing it not just on Pembroke community pages, but Marshfield, Duxbury, Plymouth, where people in the public really want access to that information. And of course, long before COVID-19, there were other infectious diseases that we are tracking, and that information is strictly protected by public guidelines of people's personal health care, HIPAA Act, and other things. So no, it's not that the state or any health department is trying to be obtuse or not be forthcoming with people, but these are rights of individuals, and they are strictly and fiercely protected. So the information that's being given out by the state, by the public health, by local health departments is all the information we can give. The only caution I would give anyone is online speculation can be a wildly dangerous thing. Again, I go back to everyone's very concerned with the 1 or 2 positive cases. And I heard from a friend, and so knows it, and so said it to me. And then they start recreating wherever so-and-so has been. Again, this creates a little bit of a panic of so-and-so was here, so-and-so went there, so-and-so went to this supermarket. But it also creates an artificial sense of comfort. Well, if I go to Stop and Shop and this person went to Shaw's, I'm safe. And that nothing could be further from the truth. I can't stress enough. People need to not worry so much where these few cases that we actually know about went, and need to be very concerned about the fact that there are positive people walking around every day out in public using the same supermarkets, the same Dunkin' Donuts, the same convenience stores, the same CVSs that we are all using. You have to presume every time you go out that you're going to come into contact with it, because odds are you will.
Okay, Gretchen, question for you. What are you hearing from the seniors as their largest concern in this particular climate and in this environment?
So their largest concern is, what do they do if they don't feel well? That has been the biggest call. And my first answer to them is to call your primary care doctor. And it goes through your primary care doctor. A second concern was, what if I have COVID and I get Meals on Wheels? Are they going to deliver? Absolutely. I did touch base with OCES on this, and they said that they do have the capability of doing 10 to 12 meals, and we can make arrangements for anyone who is ill, and we can drop those 10 to 14 to 15 meals off to them at their house. I did myself yesterday. I bought a bunch of big plastic bags, so my Meals on Wheels drivers now are just putting the meals in there, and they're putting them right on the door handle. We were before putting it maybe on a chair outside the house, but now we can hang it right on the handle. They're concerned about food. Our delivery, we deliver once a week from the Firehouse Food Pantry, which they are absolutely amazing, I have to say. And typically we have about 9 residents that we deliver to that are unable to get to the pantry themselves. And it went up to, I think, 13 last week, and I've got several more this week because they just, they can't leave the house. I do want to touch on OCES because I did mention them. They are fully active. They are working remotely, but they are still doing intake. So if anyone needs services, they really should be able to call them at 508-584-1561 and ask for intake. So if you've been thinking about getting Meals on Wheels and you haven't, still call them. They will start to make arrangements for that. So I think right now it's just the fear. And I want to tell those of you that are out there that may see this, that aren't a senior or that hoarded all your toilet paper, your paper towels. I have seniors in need of those items. So if you can find it in your heart to drop them off at the senior center, I can certainly get those items to the seniors that are looking for those items. I did have a case of toilet paper dropped off for us, but we're slowly going through that. It's amazing that you can't find a roll of paper towels.
Thank you. Erin, as far as what you hear back from parents, students and teachers aren't able to go to school. So you've got parents at home becoming teachers and balancing the well-being of their student versus the well-being of their child. Do you have any resources available, or is there any good guidance that they can rely on to go forward here?
Sure. So all along, the guidance has been that the intent is not to replicate the school day at home. Our teachers, in order to become a teacher in Massachusetts, there's a ton of training associated with it, and none of us as parents can just on a dime become that. We have been able to reach out to families that are in need of devices because, again, what we're delivering is through a virtual platform. The end of last week and the week before, we gave out over 100 Chromebooks, or loaned out over 100 Chromebooks from the middle school. And once we shift on April 6th to actually delivering assignments, we will open up the window again to families to come and access devices if they need. I think I'm homeschooling 2 kids myself, which they may pop in the window here. They're 8 and 10. And it's a lot to do and work at the same time. So really what we're asking teachers to put together over this week are assignments that students can do on their own, and not necessarily need mom or dad's help in order to get through them. So I think that's probably what our focus is right now, is creating opportunities for students to connect with their teacher as well as their classmates and provide the equivalent of, I think Commissioner Riley had said, half of a student day. So that's about 3 hours here in Pembroke, providing activities and materials that would amount to that per student. So that's 15 hours a week of homeschooly type virtual learning, remote learning. But at the same time, the emphasis has been on get outside. Going for a walk with your mom and dad can definitely be a lesson. We want you to think mathematically, think scientifically, in all of those pieces. All of that is what the commissioner and the governor have been really pushing for, is that it's not about replicating the school day in your house, but it is about having conversations with your kids and keeping them active and thinking. We do continue to update the digital resources pages on our on the Pembroke Public Schools website. Teachers have been taking resources from that and sending them out to individual classrooms, but it's definitely a good place for parents to look if they're looking for extra stuff in addition to what we'll be sending out.
A follow-up to that, any available adjustment counseling, any plan potentially to look into
So
that?
the plans moving into April 6th is for everybody to be available. So we're just working out with both the staff and with the union about what that looks like for different classifications of workers. But the expectation is next week for all staff to have almost office hours available for students, so including our adjustment counselors and our guidance counselors, so students can reach out if they're in need of support, but that there's a dedicated time during each day that somebody's available to talk.
Thank you.
Sabrina?
Lisa, back to you for a quick second on the interpretation of the governor's essential business order.
Yep.
What was the struggle like trying to really lock in some of those descriptions?
So there's a split in the community, and I think we see this in social media and we see it just about everywhere, that some businesses are, and even before the governor's order, we're taking the cautious road, closing, limiting services, limiting staff, taking precautions to protect themselves and their staffs. And then on the flip side, there were businesses and individuals that, of course, felt that this wasn't that serious, perhaps didn't apply to them, perhaps prioritized business earnings and things like that above the instructions given. We continue to see that. There's a lot of businesses out there that are closed or are doing the right things. There's a lot of food providers that are doing an excellent job putting in huge safety protocols to continue to provide services, including, Lowe's, Stop and Shop. All of those types of businesses are really trying to maximize the protection they can give their employees. Then conversely, we're also seeing a lot of businesses that have really taken that essential description and stretched it super, super far. And they've stretched it to the point where anyone tangential to construction is stretching it to things that are really not essential right now. And we all know it. And I think everyone needs to do a little soul searching of what's essential and what isn't essential right now and make good decisions. And for those that don't like what certain businesses and companies are doing right now, remember that with your dollars. Your dollars speak louder than anything. Support the businesses you see doing the things to protect the community and keep their employees safe, and spend your dollars there. And if you see businesses that you think are potentially putting your community at harm, maybe really stretching that description, take your business elsewhere. That sends a message as well. Obviously, there are things that are completely essential such as construction. If a tree falls on your house, of course you have to make repairs and make your house safe again. Of course, if your septic backs up all over your lawn or your toilets aren't flushing, those are the kinds of really necessary emergency repairs that every business and every government are going to help you achieve that correction. Things that can be put off, though, really ought to be put off. Certainly, is it necessary to have someone come in and do some sort of home improvement type items right now? Probably not. And keep in mind, when you bring in someone to do unnecessary home improvements like luxury upgrades, you are potentially bringing this disease right into your home, and all of your cleaning and all of your good precautions are for nothing if you literally invite it through the front door, so to speak. So you really want to think long and hard about those. And then the other thing is about essential trips to the supermarket. Obviously, you want to limit those. You want to keep those to a minimum. Going out and doing any other kind of extraneous errands and activities are just that. They're extraneous. And every time you go out into the public, again, I've said you have to assume everyone you come into contact with could or does have COVID, and you're just increasing your odds of exposure. Taking your dog to a dog groomer is really not a great decision right now. You're exposing yourself, potentially exposing your pet. And while your pet can't get it, you can touch it and pick it up from your pet. So things like that aren't a great decision right now. Any unnecessary contact, you should really look at it as you're just giving yourself one more chance for exposure. And does that one more chance really matter? Is it really important or not?
Thank you, Lisa. Julie, I wanted to mention that people can right now email their questions to any one of these four esteemed panelists by sending an email to pembrokeinfo@pactv.org. Julie, do you have any questions in yet?
I do. Actually, I have a number of questions that have come in, Sabrina, so far. A couple people have asked about town elections, town meeting, the census that's all supposed to be going on right now. How will that affect the town? What is the dates for the new Senate race, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know who you'd like to have answer that question.
Now, I think that the state rep is in the best position, but remember, some of this is local. And go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great question. Happy to address that, and other folks can jump in with additional info. First up, town elections, obviously, that was something we were immediately concerned with because a lot of towns have town elections happening now. And so the legislature has already passed and the governor signed into law legislation to allow towns to extend and delay their town elections up until the end of the fiscal year. And a lot of towns have already done that. Here in Pembroke, we obviously also have, in addition to our town election schedule, we have our special Senate election to replace former Senator DiMacedo's seat. And that election was also delayed. It will now be May 19th. But what we really want to stress to everyone is absentee voting. You can vote online. Well, you can't vote online. You can download the forms online, and you can mail the ballot, and you can vote absentee, and you never have to come to town hall. And frankly, that makes the lives of our town clerks and our staff at town hall a lot easier too. They're not having to deal with that. So please vote absentee, both for the special election, but also for the town election, which will be a little bit later on down the road. Same thing for town meeting. Obviously, town meetings where we congregate a number of folks in one room is not something we want to be doing these days. And so we've authorized towns to delay town meetings. And actually, our town moderator, Steve Dodge, I want to give him kudos. He happens to be one of the officers in the Town Moderators Association, and he's been really intimately involved in this effort to craft legislation to help our town moderators to be able to effectively delay their town meetings and do it in a safe way. And so he's done a great job making sure the little tweaks of the language get done in a way that is necessary. So those things have already happened. Some of those things are still in the works. A lot of mechanical issues that come up that, when you're running the town, and Erin knows this, from doing the school committee budget, the things that have to happen before the end of the fiscal year to have a budget for a town and for a school district. And so we've also taken steps, and there's one bill that actually is just being finalized this week in the legislature to allow towns to go past the end of the fiscal year, or to do what we call 1/12 budgets, basically. So if they don't have a budget by July 1st, to do incremental budgets, so that nobody's, no one's going to miss their payroll, no one's going to not get paid, and so forth. So a lot of mechanical steps that are happening at the local level in concert with the state government to try to make sure we're identifying all those local issues that come up that need to be changed. A lot of things obviously have already happened. We now do. In fact, later today, I think I'm participating in a Board of Selectmen's meeting remotely. That's happening thanks to PACTV. I think it's a good plug for Community Access TV. Where would we be without Community Access TV these days? I mean, the public would not have the access that we have. So it's been a godsend. So we should remember that when this is over. But a lot of changes already happening in terms of open meeting law, just making some flexibility there so that people can still have school committee meetings and board of selectmen meetings and not have to be in the same room. So there's a lot that's already happened, and still some more steps that still need to be taken. But I guess my big message would be absentee voting. If you remember nothing else from what I said, remember to absentee vote.
Sabrina, can I follow up on that, on the absentee voting? I know a lot of people, like in Pembroke, sent in the absentee ballots for the state Senate. I did. And clearly we never had it on the date that we were supposed to have it, which was supposed to be today. So
Right. Yeah.
do we actually keep those absentee ballots?
Yes. So thank you for that question,
Go ahead.
Julie. Yeah. So both for the special election happening, that was going to be happening today, that will happen May 19th, and for the town election, and for any town election, the ballots are good regardless of the date on the election. So in other words, like a town that already had a town election, like the town of Duxbury, for instance, they had already printed their ballots by the time when this all happened, and their ballots are still good. So if you cast a ballot with the old date, that is still a valid vote, and it's totally fine. Same thing with the state special election here in Pembroke, although those hadn't been, I'm not sure if those have been printed yet, but anyway, at any rate, they, whatever the date is on it is valid, and you can use those to vote. Same thing for the Pembroke town election. Obviously, the ballots for that hadn't been printed yet, so that wasn't a problem. But so that's a great question. The other thing I'd say is, for the town election, we're also going to make it easier to vote by mail. There's some special things that have to happen for state elections, but for town elections, those don't apply. And so it's going to be a lot easier to vote by mail. So when we get to the town election here in Pembroke or anywhere in the communities here on the South Shore, it's going to be easier to do that voting by mail as well. But thank you for that reminder about the election date. It's important.
I had one more, Sabrina, that came in about people that have real estate transactions. They have inspections that they're supposed to have done, whether it's they're closing on a house and they need to have something inspected, whether it's a Title IX or a fire inspection. What is the process in the town as far as how do people go for information on if they need to still do that? Where do they go? Sabrina?
A little bit of feedback there, Julie. I don't know if
I was going to say, Julie, I don't even know how to tell you. I only got every third word on that.
Oh,
Where do they still go if they want to explore?
I'm sorry. Let me try that again. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes.
Okay, very
Yes.
sorry. People have asked questions about people that have, like, they're passing on a home or they're moving into a new apartment. There's still things that are going on within this time frame. Usually you have to get the fire department to come out and inspect the fire extinguishers. You have to have the health agent come out and inspect your septic. Are those processes still happening? That's the question.
Thank you. Actually, Lisa, do you want to pick this up? You and the deputy chief had a conversation about this the other morning. Go ahead.
We're definitely on the front line of this one. So this is really hard because most communities, if not all communities, have suspended all routine service. So in answer to Julie's question, there's a yes and a no there simultaneously. Obviously, for people that already had a closing date and everything else set, we are trying to accommodate those people as best we can. However, there's a huge however here. However, the same thing about doing unnecessary home improvements. Every time you have another person go in and out of your house in your environment that is hopefully clean and hopefully coronavirus free, you have an opportunity for that coronavirus to come into your home. And conversely, if someone in a home has corona or doesn't know they have corona but was exposed to it, now inspectors in the course of trying to do their work are going to be exposed. We don't want these things. So there are very limited circumstances in Pembroke in which someone can get inspections and move forward. But a lot of Title V inspectors, the people that actually go out and do a Title V inspection for a property closing, are not actually going to go into someone's home. They're going to have the homeowner sign a form verifying some of the things inside the home. So I can't caution people enough that are going to transfer property. Look at that documentation very clearly. I personally, as a Title V inspector, if I was working privately, I would not be doing it. Title V has legal obligations that go along with it. Obviously, this is unique times, and there are some circumstances that for whatever reason, they just have to move forward. So everyone's going to have to use their best judgment case by case. But I cannot stress enough, postponing closings and everything else. And from what I'm hearing from a lot of real estate people is most banks, most people understand what's going on. They're willing to postpone, because the one thing I will say is, unless you absolutely have to move, unless there's absolutely some sort of critical deadline, do you want to move during this? Do you want to be packing up all your items, having moving people coming in and out of your homes, taking your items to a home that you don't know? What is the cleanliness state of that home? Is it your level of cleanliness or someone else's level of cleanliness? So the feedback I'm getting is most people are postponing that can. Obviously, there's a very small percentage that can't. We're trying to work with those on a case-by-case basis. And my understanding from the feedback I'm getting from realtors is most banks, most people that are in the middle of a real estate deal are very understanding of this, and everyone's trying to get some extensions, whether they be 30 or 60 days, to hopefully get beyond this window of peak case activity, so that when they would be moving or closing or doing these other things, it would be in a less or a more favorable environment, I guess I would say.
Now, to follow up on that, Josh, is that something that an individual realtor at a closing can accommodate or work into their language, so that some people who do need to go forward are still able to do so?
Yeah, so absolutely. So there's a couple aspects. A lot of a real estate transaction obviously can happen remotely. A couple aspects of it. Obviously, Lisa touched on one of them. The fire, smoke certs, as we call it. It was another aspect of that, and that was addressed by the governor, who came up with a process by which individuals can get a smoke certificate through their local fire department without having, with certification, and basically a similar process to what Lisa described. I can tell you one issue with the whole closings, real estate closings issue that hasn't been resolved yet, but I think we're getting close, is the issue of remote notarization. If you're conveying property, you have to have the deed notarized by a registered notary, and that has to happen currently in person. There's no other way legally to have that happen currently. And so that holds up any kind of closing of any kind. And so there is an effort right now, and in fact, I think it'll probably happen this week, to look at the issue of remote notarization, to allow a process whereby someone could, like we're doing today, to witness a signing in a formal legal way as a notary, and allow that transaction to go through to basically provide for that during this state of emergency. So that's something we're looking at right now. The other aspects of it, I think, have been addressed. Obviously, the want versus need issue is something we'll leave to other folks to decide, but there are some steps and tools in place now to handle that.
Okay, sorry to ask you another one that's kind of hot. The governor indicated yesterday he's going to take a hard look and talk today, when he comes on the air, about some of the refinement of essential businesses and potentially that stay-at-home advisory deadline. Not that you are responsible or involved in this, but what do you have
on the
to
phone
say?
with them now, right?
Look, that's going to extend things to people in a very real way. And there's going to be a whole new, as Erin indicated earlier, a whole new level of transition that some of these plans have to go through, as opposed to short-term solutions versus longer-range plans. From the state level, what are you hearing? What can you share with us?
Yeah, so I obviously the governor is going to be coming out. Actually, I just got the notification at 2:00 today, doing another announcement on the press conference. And, we all anticipate that he's going to extend the essential business closings through the end of the month, and also make some refinements to the actual list. And then, what that exactly means, I can't speak to that yet. I can tell you I've gotten, just like I'm sure Lisa has, bombarded with questions about, is my business essential? Why isn't my business essential? Shouldn't my business be essential? And that sort of thing. So I think you'll see some refinements. I don't know if that means we're going to be carving out maybe some more exemptions or adding to the list of closed businesses. It's hard to say at this point. We'll all know soon enough, but that we expect that today. And I did want to mention, while we still have a moment, for a lot of the business owners out there, small business owners, there is a great new package that was passed as part of the CARES Act by Congress, called the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. And basically, it's a loan for small businesses, and it's a pretty generous terms. It applies to businesses of 500 employees or less. So almost every small business around here would qualify as that. And you can borrow up to $2 million. It's based on a calculation of what your payroll is over a 1 month period times 2.5. That's the maximum amount you can borrow. And then you can actually get loan forgiveness in a significant amount of that loan. So in a sense, it's called a loan, but in a sense, it sort of becomes a grant if you agree to keep your employees on the payroll and keep their wages intact. So if you're doing that, you can get a significant amount of that loan forgiven, meaning you don't have to pay it back, and it's not even taxable forgiveness. It's totally off the books. And so that's a very generous, very significant program that the federal government has implemented. I know it's I've been encouraging every local business around here in Pembroke that, is out there that has been impacted by this to look at this. And the way it's going to work is the Small Business Administration, the SBA, is going to come out with the, sort of the details, the framework of that any day now, literally this week. And then local banks that are SBA partners will then be the ones doing the loans. And so you would, if you have a relationship with your local bank and they're an SBA approved loan, approved lender, you can go there and deal with them and apply for the loan. And it has, in addition to what I mentioned, has very favorable terms and favorable interest rates, and there's no payments for a minimum of 6 months, amortized up to 10 years. So it's really a good deal. And I would it's called the Paycheck Protection Program. I'd really urge any small business, and this includes independent contractors and people who are self-employed. So if you're in business for yourself, if you're a painter and you don't have any employees, you can still qualify for this if your business has been impacted by COVID-19. So I have information on my website, on Facebook, and there's plenty of information online. But that's something I really, in addition to the unemployment benefits, probably the next best thing that the federal government did was to do this loan for small businesses, because it's going to help a lot of small businesses, and it's also going to help the people that work at those businesses, because they're going to keep their employees on and their wages, and that will really have a ripple effect, a positive ripple effect, we hope, throughout the economy. So just wanted to stress that for folks.
No, that's great. The town of Pembroke's really taken a lot of time. The emergency management team took the information and tried to make it into one large resource for residents just by clicking on the homepage of the website. So the red banner launches the COVID-19 updates on a daily basis through the weekends, every day. The meetings for the emergency management team are at 10 o'clock. They've always tried to update by noon. Today, maybe it makes sense for them to push if there's going to be more information coming out 2 hours later. But that PPP program is something that is vital for small businesses. And I think there's a plan for a breakout right on that page.
Great.
Just for unemployment and small businesses. But thank you. And quick question, sorry, Gretchen. What do you see as the first needs and the most quickly evolving concerns if this order is extended? And it is likely that it will be. What are your seniors going to feel? How are you going to respond? And what do you need?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is the isolation. People don't understand that with the seniors, I think isolation may be even bigger than the virus. There's people at home that are alone and they're afraid to go out. They may not have any family. So we need to really get our thumb on who those people are. I know that my incredible staff and I, when this first happened, reached out personally to every senior that we have in our system. And that is, a senior is 60 years or older. So I just have a tendency to call them older adults. And they were so happy to hear from us. We're going to have to go back and revisit some of those people. And if you didn't get a call, it's because we don't have a correct number for you, or you're not in our system yet. Please call here and register your phone number with us. I think a lot of it was over the years, people have now changed to a cell phone instead of having a home phone. So a lot of the numbers have been disconnected. So please, 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 and spread the word. If you're 60 or older, reach out to us. I'll put you in our system and we'll call. That's what I do every day. I reach out to those I know that are alone, and the same with them to us. I'm still doing emergency fuel applications through South Shore Community Action. We have until the end of April to be able to submit those. So I have a mailbox out front the building. You can drop off all your information and I will file that application for you. I did walk someone through yesterday online filling out for unemployment. So things like that are going to food is going to become more necessary. OCES, I think, is going to become more necessary, but certainly call here. We have the services. We have, as of now, my Meals on Wheels volunteers have been amazing, as have the residents of Pembroke. I have a list, pages long, of people willing to volunteer if we need them. But at the moment, if we don't need them, I'm just going to have you talk to your older neighbor, walk their dog if they need to, bring their trash to the curbside, offer to do errands for them. They may have something at the pharmacy. They may have, need some grocery items. If they have a smartphone, do a video call with them. Have your kids do a video call. Have them call grandma and grandpa, or their aunts and uncles. The isolation is huge, and I think that is what we really need to try and deal with now. I do updates pretty much daily on the Pembroke Council on Aging Facebook page, and I try to put a little inspirational quote on there. Sometimes I put things that we don't like to see, like there's scams already going on. It didn't take a hot minute for the scammers to come out and do some COVID scams. So those are on our Facebook page. But my biggest fear over the next few weeks is going to be the isolation. They are already calling us, when are you opening? When are you opening? And I said, I really can't give them that answer. Maybe we'll know at 2:00 today. But there's a lot of things that they were looking forward to that got canceled. I had a big open house going here on April 24th. That's obviously going to be postponed. And I have to say, all my vendors and musicians and caterer were very willing to do whatever I need to do so we can do it further down the line. But just things that they're looking forward to. So Lori Knott, my Meals on Wheels manager, and I have been planning an event that we can have as soon as we can open, and we'll just it'll be a pop-up event here just to celebrate life.
Thank you.
So that's it.
Thank you, Gretchen. Julie, did you have anything else? I mean, I know the people at home have questions, and it's more difficult to communicate. So whatever you've got, please share it.
Okay, yes, I got one more really one is all the things that people are seeing on Facebook help us make masks, help us deliver food to the food pantry. Please bring food to the police station and our first responders. All those types of things where people are really trying to do wonderful things. Is there one central place where they can go for what's actually the best practices in all of these things, like especially making masks?
At this point in time, I think we're referring everyone back to this one pager, and it's become, we don't want it to become unwieldy. But that's one of the conversations slated for today on how to have these breakout moments in that page, similar to what was discussed with Josh a minute ago. There needs to be breakouts for the unemployment and PPP programs for small businesses. There needs to be breakouts for people that, as we've discussed, are now starting to say, wait a minute, this is going to have a longer lens. I want to be out doing something productive. I want to give back. So some of those opportunities need to actually be addressed at the emergency management level and actually defined. What is safe, what is not, what's consistent with the guidelines, what is the best practices. Lisa, do you have more on that?
Yeah, well, I think that it's pretty obvious at this point that the game has just changed, and that's no shock, and I hope that's not a shock to the folks at home that are watching this on what's going on in different countries. I think everyone is probably well aware the idea this was going to be over next Tuesday was slim to none. So I think now that the projected date has been pushed, not unlike the schools are now reevaluating what their new model looks like. I think we, pursuant to whatever the governor says at 2 p.m. today, are going to start to rewrite our model as we have done in some cases on a daily basis. So I think that that's going to be the next conversation, is that this is likely going to become, I'm going to guess, May the 4th, like the schools. And we need to as a community decide, well, what does that look like for us? And what are the needs that we are not fulfilling right now? And what are the needs that are fulfilled that we no longer need assistance with? And what does that new normal look like? I think one of the biggest things going to become, and I believe the schools touched on this, but this is also going to become a community issue, is counseling. and mental support, and how do we accept that this is what we thought was going to be a 3-week type of scenario has now become possibly another month, 4 or 5 week scenario, and what does that look like, and what do we need, where are the shortcomings, where do we exceed? And then the second part of this is there's been a lot of different grant applications for towns out there. I know I filled out 2. The town has not received any money yet. So some of these things come at a cost, and how do we fulfill that cost? Obviously, if there's people, volunteering PPE and volunteering their services and skills, that's wonderful. But I think we all know that the need is going to exceed what is actually given or volunteered. So there's going to also, I'm assuming once the governor makes these decisions, there's also going to be some follow-up of how funding is achieved, and that's going to help shape what's going to be available within Pembroke. I'm sure there's a lot of things that are going to be available at the state level, and that's wonderful. And people should consider going to the state COVID site to see those different kinds of things that are available. But as far as what's going to be available locally is going to be very much tied to that new timeline. And then, of course, sadly, at the end of the day, is tied to how much resources we have, what kind of money we receive, and what kind of resources are redistributed to the local level, so that the town can say this is what's going to be available here.
Thank you. Erin, if you had last words and you wanted to send all the students and parents off with some optimism here, hearing about the potential longer range plan being formulated, what would you throw out there, please?
So I think what really matters is what does May 4th look like for us, and what do we want kids to be able to do on May 4th? And I think resounding the sentiment has been mental health and wellness. So supporting kids through having conversations, through using some of the resources on our website. I think one of the questions I get a lot, and at times seems trivial, is there going to be a prom? When is graduation going to be? And I think it's important for both parents and students in our senior class to know whenever we come back to school, our intent is to make those last few weeks as special for them as it has been in years past, and that we're thinking about them. The class of 2020 is definitely going to be a very unique class for us, but at the end of the day, we are already exhausting every potential opportunity and avenue to give them the experience that they deserve as well.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, folks. Julie, do you have any final questions, words of wisdom, anything to help us close this off?
Well, thank you, Sabrina, and thank you for the panel today. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we will have a Pembroke COVID-19 update. Different people can come on. It's been asked if maybe the Chamber of Commerce could have a representative come on, maybe the food pantry, maybe even a religious leader. Different people want to see different faces, I think, during this time. So that might be something to consider in forums going forward. Sabrina, thank you so much for hosting this, and thank you for the crew. Again, please do visit Pembroke's website for all your details, and do click on that main red banner. This has been Julie Thompson from PACTV. Please stay safe, follow guidelines, and we will see you next time.